MorbidKaos.
Morbid! I was excited to see Morbid submit.
He said, I already marked my crit time, so get to it.
Wow, Morbid!
I
Wow.
love you, Morbid. Uh, Many names can't think says, one of my first pieces I ever did, I did it on my Note 5. I guess I'll redo it on my Note 8 or Procreate. Crit super welcome. Help me out, fam. Absolutely, man. So there's Morbid's original. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the redo. Which, by the way, the redo itself, when we show it off, it's going to be very desaturated. It's just so you can see the actual text on it.
Yeah, I think Morbid's kind of familiar with how I do crits. I like to write on
Okay.
top of mine, so
Yeah.
I had to desaturate the actual colors. This is not meant to be like, hey, you should desaturate everything. Please don't.
Yeah. But that's Morbid's basic piece right there. That's his starting point. And just keep in mind, like the saturation, like the deepness of the black of space and stuff would be very similar to what you had. So these aren't like compositional changes we would, or color changes, or value changes, I should say, that we were recommending you make.
Yes.
All right. So do you want to start off on this one?
Yeah. So, the first thing that sort of came to mind, again, this was more of like a compositional issue, and actually, kind of seeing some of your guys' work, from this, I think it's definitely beneficial. At some point, we do a composition study. Um, but in general, like, so the main thing that sort of popped out from both of us on this was that we felt like the composition was too heavy on the right side. So you have everything lined up on the right side. Like the Earth is on the right side, the astronaut is on the right side, and there's just a lot of negative space on the left. It's okay to have a lot of negative space because, you know, this person is out in space. And you know, it's always cool to show off all the colors and everything like that. But from a compositional standpoint, you should really sort of look for the balances, right?
Visual balance, yeah.
The visual balance, yeah. So the first thing that was done was we took your astronaut dude and we shifted him over to the left side to balance off, you know, the positioning of Earth, and then this also goes back to the very first thing that we critted about how if you guys have elements of your illustration that go off canvas, you need to, it cannot just be one thing. You have to do something else to balance it.
Yeah, it's just visual balance, right?
Yes, it's visual balance. Yeah. It's visual balance. So that's exactly what we did here. So not only did we shift Mr. Astronaut over to the left side, but we actually enlarged him a bit and had it so that his particular element went off the canvas. And now I actually feel like it looks more like he's looking out at the Earth too. Like it's more like a directional look, and then the Earth also got resized a little bit too to sort of like help balance out the negative space in between. Yeah.
So the big thing here too is like, yeah, we've eliminated some of like the universal negative space on the canvas left. We've also incorporated now circular shapes, canvas right and canvas left. So you actually have a visual balance of circular elements. Because there's a lot of negative space in the background, what I would say is play up some of the terrain of the actual moon. I'm assuming he's on the moon looking back at Earth here. So get some actual like detail. Maybe kind of like pull the ridge on like the craters and stuff. Maybe kind of bring it up higher on the right side, for example. So it's not like just a flat plane that he's sitting on. It kind of bumps up a little bit. It's a little bit obscured, maybe kind of warped because of the glass of the helmet on the left. That's why it's raised up. But yeah, don't make that terrain just so universally level across. Like get some like bumpiness. Get some rendering on there too, because after all, the astronaut in the moon terrain is what's going to be the visually the closest in focus on the canvas, right? So you're going to want to probably put the most rendering work into your astronaut, and your second most rendering work in detail put into your actual moon surface, and your third most rendering work into the actual Earth itself in the background. Or that might deviate. Maybe you have equal amount of rendering on the Earth to the moon, because the Earth actually is a really important focal point too. But it is very distant in that sense, so you may not want to over render it that way.
Hi,
I think Pam actually had mentioned an interesting point too. Because it is a glass surface of the helmet too. If you're kind of going like this sort of like fantasy like glass helmet, you may play up the reflections a bit more. The glass also may create a bit of a glare too. It actually might just the nature of the material kind of innately kind of wash out or desaturate the actual color of the hair and the of the astronaut inside the glass itself. So just be aware of that too. You may want to kind of deviate or change some of the colors and play around with that a bit more too, right there.
And it wouldn't be uniformed when something is, in particular, if something's in like a glass dome, like the part of the body or the object that is closest to us will have a little bit more clearer, like more saturated colors, but the parts that are a little further away get distorted by the glass a little bit and washed out by the glass. So that's just sort of something to keep in mind when you have something that's sort of like a round dome.
One thing you also want to maybe just consider, we didn't really talk about this, Pam and I, but because you are in outer space, there is no sort of like, I mean, there's going to be sunlight coming at you, right? So if the sun is hitting you, you want to maybe consider like actual light sources, but you might want to kind of get creative and maybe have some like backlighting and stuff going on with him too. Just it seems like you're kind of going for more like atmospheric and moody and kind of like creating this scene of like of solitude, right? He's very much in shadow, very much rim-lit because the light coming off the Earth is actually hitting back at him. But those are ideas maybe that you maybe want to explore, maybe pulling a bit more lighting on the actual astronaut, so he's not quite so much in shadow. But yeah, it's gonna be tricky. That'll be a really tricky one to play around with. I think
a lamp would be really good, Morbid, especially if you have him place the lamp on the edge of that ridge, because then it'll give you like a secondary light source, or actually a very obvious light source, kind of what James was saying. And then you can make more interesting lighting dynamics. Yeah,
it's lighting in space is tricky. So you do have a lot of freedom, though. I mean, to kind of mess around with that, but that'd be something to play around with for sure. Cannibal, how you doing? But yeah, hopefully that helps you out, man. I think the biggest change is going to be just composition here for you, and I think you'll be on track with this one.
Morbid, are you going for plus ultra?
Thinks he's going to put everything on the line like an anime. Oh my god, Jesus Christ, man!
1000%. Oh my god. Okay, I don't know if Beastie has seen this one yet.